Hello and welcome to my channel. Today is February the 3rd, 2021, and continue with Black History Month, the Alaska Highway. That's correct. If you're not familiar with the Alaska Highway, I'm here to inform you. This video is brought to you by the source, www.blackpast.org, with African American History, Construction Alaska Highway, 1942, Roll Race Far North. That's correct. The construction of the Alaskan Highway, the roll of the race in the far north. We fought the road, Christine and Dennis McLaurin. The following article, independent historians Christine and Dennis McClure describe the role race played in the construction of the Alaskan Canada Highway, short for ALCAN. During World War II, the highway constructed in 8 months, stretching 1,600 miles from Dawson Creek, British Columbia to Delta Junction, Alaska. It was built by 11,000 soldiers in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. About 1/3 of the soldiers were African Americans, organized in the 3 newly formed Negro regiments, the 93rd Engineer General Service Regiment, 95th Engineer General Service Regiment, and the 97th Engineer General Service Regiment. The 388th Engineer Battalion formed around a cadre of the 93rd, remained in Yukon in 1943 to build the Canal Road from the highway to the Norman Wells. The account also highlights a particular experience of these black soldiers, which were described further in their book on the subject, We Fought the Road. The epic project that built the Alaskan Highway and the highway's role in the defense of America during World War II is relatively well known. The racism that disordered and contaminated the project is not. 3 segregated regiments worked on the Alcan. More than 3,000 young black men faced up the challenges that made the project epic, stood up to racism on top of that, and still delivered. And they received virtually no credit. Let's go ahead and applaud them. That was back when Americans were Americans and they believed in the red, white, and blue. That's right. They were men back then, regardless of race. We knew that Christine's dad had served as an officer in the Corps of Engineers and had worked on the Alaska Highway. When Christine's mother passed away in 2019, we have found among her effects of a box of old photos and a bundle of letters Tim had written to her during the war years. Intrigued, Christine read the letters and went through the photographs, grainy black and white images of young Tim and of a lot of black soldiers. We all know that he served in a segregated regiment, but we didn't really know what that meant. Chris dug in, filled her sewing rooms with maps and books. Between 1939 and 1941, war raged across Europe and the Pacific, and tensions grew between the United States and Japan. Thousands of Americans, both black and white, began turning up to enlistment centers around the country. A new draft law in 1940 brought in 1,000 more. And the Army struggled how to incorporate black men. Black soldiers served in segregated regiments commanded by white officers. Oh man, boy, has time changed. I am glad that we have black officers and Hispanic officers and Asian officers, even female officers. That diversity of the American spirit is really on show when it comes to our military forces. I cannot highlight that enough. Anyways, and this is one of the reasons why. This is a very important endeavor and feat that these people achieved, I am happy to report it or report on or tell the story. Anyways, the Japanese assault on Pearl Harbor panicked military and political leaders in the United States, the remote territory of Alaska, and its Aleutian Island chain offered the Japanese a path to the American continent. To defend Alaska, they would have to send men in numbers and materials in quantities way beyond the capability of ocean and air transport. In February 1942, President Roosevelt dispatched the Army Corps of Engineers to build a 1,600 miles of highway through the most difficult terrain in North America, a land route to Alaska, and the Corps did it in just 8 months and 12 days. That's right, 8 months and 12 days. Yeah, we look at roads that are getting built today. Just look at Austin. They were rebuilding Mopac, and that took like 3 years. Only supposed to take 18 months. Yeah, right. Anyways, in 2013, we made our way north to Dawson Creek, British Columbia, looking for the ghost of Tim and his Black Regiment. As soon as we made our way across Peach River and up the highway through the ghosts began to take charge, gradually changing our mission. At Sakani Chief, the black soldiers of the 95th Regiment bet a month's pay that they could bridge the river in 4 days. They did it in three. We walked along the rocky bank of the river, observed the murmur of the river and the deep quiet. We looked at the new bridge, then the ruins of the Public Road Administration Bridge, but there was another bridge, a bridge of raw wood timbers cut, hewn, hauled, and set in place by little more than 100 black soldiers working around the clock on the mountainside and chest deep in icy water. Talk about some bad mofos right there. I mean, getting icy water, that hurts. Man, we found an old road. Dennis spotted two large hand-hewn timbers. We scraped away the dirt with our hands and we touched the history of the black heroes who put them there. Damn right they're heroes. If the ghost of the 91st haunted Sakharin Chief, the ghost of the black 93rd haunted the highway further northwest of Yukon. The 93rd built the highway through Telson, but at George Johnson Museum, we watch a short movie featuring young white soldiers building the road. Ooh, that probably hit a nerve. Anyways, we used Tim's old photos to triangulate the location near Tulsa of the motor pool at Morley Bay, where we knew 110 black mechanics had labored to fix equipment ravaged by mud, muskie, and the weather. On a historical highway, the bristles with signs and monuments, we found at Morley Bay only a peaceful bit of woods. The crowning achievement of the 93rd was the 70-mile road they built from Carcass to Telson River on June 16, 1942. The bulldozers and the hungry, exhausted black engineer of Company A had swarmed out of the woods to Johnson Crossing, completing the road to Telson River in 1.5 months. It's actually not bad. We crossed the river, stopped and looked in the vein of any sign that they had ever been there. The black faces of my father's photos haunted us, those soldiers who fought nature and man to accomplish something stupendous, and no one knew it. We searched the archives along the way, but the information about the 93rd simply didn't exist. The Corps of Engineer in 1942 had reluctantly brought three black regiments into the project, and they had gone to great lengths to hide them. Film crews, journalists, and photographs in the 1942 following the white regiments and ignored the black men. You have to keep in mind that this was a different time. This was a different period where this was acceptable. Now it's not acceptable, and we have actually grown to understand why this is wrong, why they had segregation, all that good. Hopefully, I'm only preaching to the choir here. In caucus, we met Millie Jones, who was a schoolgirl in 1942. She remembered the exciting day when the first black troops of the 93rd came to the depot. They were black white men, Millie's mother cooked for the hotel in Carcass, and the army rules for black soldiers confused her as much as they confused her daughter. The soldiers couldn't come into the hotel or even to the front door. We realized that the army had brought racism to Canada with the black regiments. The racism that permitted their experience in Yukon was an import. The gross injustice griped us. As we traveled, looking hard for any information we could find, we caught our first break at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. The archive had Leon Morgan papers in the early 1990s responding to the approach of the 50th anniversary of the highway. Lyell's employer, National Geographic, assigned her to do a story on the construction of the highway. In the course of her research, Lyell was infected with the exact same obsession that now infected us. Where were the black soldiers in the record? The story of Lyell's fight to get credit for these men is the tangled notes on paper at the Russell Library. Lyell gave us access, and we found at least some information we wanted. Lyell had actually found a living veterans of the Black Regiment, including the 93rd. Her papers contain interview notes. We met Lyell in Anchorage, and when she suggested we consider writing a book, the idea intrigued us. Our travel blog caught the attention of Keith Twitchell, author of Northwest Epic. He contacted us with similar thoughts. A book might be in order. Back home at the end of the summer, we dug into research and we visit the National Archives in Maryland several times. We visit the Corps of Engineer History Museum in Virginia. We spent a week at the Army Record Center in St. Louis and found morning reports and rosters for the 93rd. We put a website online that served as a repository for historical information about black men on the highway to help us find veteran families, and we found families. We visited and interviewed them all, collected copies of photos and information. The young black men who came up with the black regiments, the 95th, 93rd, and 97th, grew up under Jim Crow, a deeply racist social and legal system. The Army regulations of black soldiers simply incorporated Jim Crow laws. Young black men assigned to the 91st Engineers lived in tent in swampy, snake-infested lowland on the back of Camp Livingston, Louisiana, separated from white troops. One day, the Army ordered the troops of the 93rd to board a train. They rode the train for days until the train stopped. They were herded onto a ship. The ship docked in a frigid Skagway in April. They had no idea where they were or why they were there. The Army refused to allow them to visit or even speak to the natives at local residence. The black troops worked with hand tools, pick shovels, axes, and saws. They operated bulldozers and drove trucks. They struggled through the muskeg and the mud. Malicious mosquitoes, gnats who weren't racist, they attacked black skin as readily as white. The black engineers stayed in Yukon through the winter of 1942-43. When the 93rd Engineers completed their section of the road, they conveyed 335 went 3 miles north to build barracks for the white 18th Engineers. They, the black men, lived in tents at temperatures of 40 to 60 below. Roaring fires and barrels stoves couldn't even melt the frost off the canvas. Totally isolated, their only friends were their tent mates. In a letter written in December 1942, Captain Edward G. Carroll, black chaplain of the 95th Engineers, said that the road and its builders, only those that can really say we fought the road who actually worked with sweat and blood on the construction. When we finished the manuscript, rewrote it with the support and advice of both L. Morgan and Heath Twitchell, rewrote it again and retitled We Fought the Road. Leonard Larkins, a private with the 93rd Engineers, fought the road. After the highway was complete, he went with the 93rd to the Aleutians. At the end of the war, he returned to Louisiana, where he married and raised 10 children. The memories of his time in Canada gradually receded until 2016 when his son Bert found our website. This year is the 75th anniversary of the highway. Groups in Alaska have used the occasion to raise awareness of black soldiers' contribution, and in May they brought Leonard Larkins and the 3 of his sons to Alaska, appearing with Leon at the event of Anchorage. Governor William Walker spoke to all of us when he thanked them. When was this written? Let's see here. Let's go all the way to the top. Didn't realize this was this long. So this was in 2017. Yeah, 2017. So yes, I think, from what I understand, this history was written, or the way I understood it, it was this act alone that helped integrate the different races within the different battalions. I think it was this feat that was the catalyst, and this is why this is so important. Anyway, so hopefully you found this educational, semi-entertaining, and let's continue with the Black History Month and celebrating the history, celebrating the heroes that made America great in today's standards. But most importantly, leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are. Smash the like and subscribe button or the plus button on Rumble. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.